And welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. Today we're joined by, you got Ian Boyd below me, Eric Naleen in the bottom right. We're introducing Charlie Williams, a new recruiting analyst over at Inside Texas, who has been tearing up the roads in DFW and helping us with our Junior Day coverage over the past couple weeks. Charlie, thanks for jumping on. Glad to have you on board, and looking forward to getting a lot of your insight here over the next, however long we're doing this.
Awesome, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be a part of the team, man.
So
we're glad to have you, Charlie. We've known Charlie for a very long time. It's very exciting to have him with us. There's been times that Charlie helped us out with information. He's already got a head start in learning the business, so we're excited to have him.
Charlie's got a football background that should lend. He's an expert. He knows what he's looking for when he's talking to recruits and watching tape. We've known you for a long time, going back to some of your high school days and DFW. But you were recently on a staff that a lot of Texas fans are decently familiar with. But you're coming now. You're back in your home roots. So just kind of give everybody a little background on your football acumen and what has you here with us over at Inside Texas.
Yeah, so for 10 years I coached in the DFW area. The latest high school was John Paul High School. A number of guys that Texas offered. Some they landed, one in Terrence Brooks. But my first recruit that Texas ever got was Davion Curtis, a receiver out of Temple, Texas, and then a defensive lineman to Taquan Graham after that in 2017. And so, like I said, I met Eric and Justin so long ago. I guess almost 10. It'll be 10 years and I guess 2 more years. So coached at John Paul, and from there I got an opportunity to go coach at UNLV under Coach Marion, who was previously at Texas. I was an analyst on the offensive side of the ball for him. Pretty much broke down film, watched high school guys, portal guys, drew scout cards and ran the scout team. You name it, I've done it, right? Learned the ins and outs of football behind the scenes, so to speak. And went out there, been away from family, been away from my girls. It was tough. Being out in Vegas might have been fun, but being away from my girls was pretty tough. And so came back home here, and then I hit up Eric, and, man, there was an opportunity there. And I was like, yo, I'll be interested in it, and kind of keeps me connected to, football and recruiting and things like that. So here I am, and I'm just happy to be a part of the team, man.
Yeah, he texted while I was in New Orleans having lunch with the wife and kid, and I was like, "Ooh, all right, this is a stroke of luck on my end." I was very excited to get that. I told him, "Man, I'm looking for somebody right now." So it's crazy that he reached out. So I'm really excited that it worked out, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie, you were there over at Junior Day covering that for us, and man, we're all familiar with a lot of different people, whether it be parents or coaches who show up, but Eric, I think you can attest to this. More people probably recognize Charlie than you and I and Justin combined over there on Saturday. We do have a question. Can you coach defensive line? There is a little bit of a vacancy. Is that something you could do if hopefully your time at Inside Texas is not that short? We have a lot of use for you.
Yeah, they would have called me. Look, I wouldn't be able to turn that one down, but hey, you guys will still have me.
Let's get to Paxton's question, because he's over here making fun of us for not answering it, even though it's pretty self-explanatory. Paxton, for as closely as you follow recruiting, they still have room. They don't have to be under any certain number right now. So if a baller jumps in from, say, a school far up north, of course they're going to have room for that. So they're not done with this portal, depending on who jumps in.
Ian, don't want to forget about you over there, and just want to make sure our Michigan man. Just kind of curious real quick before we jump into it way later, what the fallout is kind of like over in the Detroit area at this point.
Well, things are going pretty well for Southeast Michigan football these days. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's this team called the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
May have escaped your notice in football for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, but they're playing in the conference championship game for I think the first time I recall in my entire life. And then that other team, Michigan, won the championship. So 3 consecutive Big Ten championships, 3 consecutive wins over Ohio State. It's just not like I think if
All righty.
Big,
Well, that was a long way to get
NFL,
into Jim Harbaugh
I
leaving.
think people would be a little.
We'll work on that one. Hey,
right.
everything's so good up in Southeast Michigan that they don't have time for some of the internet. We're definitely gonna get to Harbaugh. We're definitely gonna get to some of the questions here. But Charlie, we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the places you've been. And you've been to, not only did you help us cover the junior day, but you also were able to go to some of the most talented high schools within the state of Texas, not just ones along I-20, but all over the Metroplex, including one today where you were not too far behind the Texas staff over in the Dallas and Fair Park area.
Yeah, so I had a chance to go to Skyline today. As I'm pulling up, I recognize Coach Banks right away, right? I know who he is, and see them coming down towards the weight room. I'm already there, and I'm getting invited in by Peter Jenkins, a former Longhorn player, right? So he coached there, and Coach Christian Scott is there now, another former Longhorn. I'm in the weight room, and then here comes Banks, Coach Sarkisian and Coach Banks behind me, and they were coming in, of course, to see Elijah Barnes, and kind of saw those guys checking out, him, how he works in the weight room like that, and had a brief conversation with Coach Banks, but nothing too in depth. They kind of got a picture with Elijah, and then they kind of left and got out the bad weather. But yeah, I thought that was awesome. But I've been able to visit Red Oak, DeSoto, Cedar Hill, numerous of talented guys, South Oak Cliff, of course. But I'll continue to make my way throughout the DFW. I plan to go to North Crowley, see John Turntine, big time recruit, right? That's a high priority for Texas. And so I'll continue to make my way throughout the DFW streets and continue to see more guys as I go.
You've seen a lot of the most talented prospects in the state, not just in the 2025 and 2026 cycles, but, in talking to players like, even freshmen like Ethan Feaster, and then you go to Louisville and see Michael Fasusi. Who are some of the biggest names that you've talked to, and what's some info you've been able to glean from them in those conversations?
I'd say the biggest physically be Byron Washington, right? From over at DeSoto, just talking to him, getting his thoughts on Texas. A number of those guys there. Going to Red Oak, taking to Braden Robinson, he got to spend some one-on-one time with Coach Jackson while he was there, even though there was a number of kids there. He did get some one-on-one time. So I thought that was interesting that he was able to break away and have some actual one-on-one time with him. Just a number of hosted guys. Oh, sorry about that. Somebody's escaped their room. I apologize.
Hey, it's what happens when you have 3-year-old twin girls, man. I mean, it's you can't keep them locked up, keep them away from dad.
Put it on. And so I've been seeing a number of guys throughout. JJ Shelton at South Oak Cliff, and so like I said, I'm going to see John Turntine next. And I think that's a big name. And saw Elijah Barnes today. So it's especially huge if a head coach is coming to see you right after seeing you on junior day. He makes a visit to come by your high school and see you. I put him as a top priority. So definitely.
We've reported in the past they're going to go pretty big at linebacker after only taking one last year. So they've already got Anthony Williams in the class right now. You mentioned J.J. Shelton. There's the guys out west they're looking at. There's more guys in state. Riley Pettijohn was just there on junior day. So that's Johnny Nanson's going to have a successful first class. It's almost guaranteed.
Charlie, I don't want to keep you from what's going on at home too long, but I guess just from a perspective of someone who has coached and worked in a college, whether it be personnel, whether it be in that room in general, what are some things that when you go and see a school and you go and talk to a kid, I know you weren't out on the road a ton, but when you're still able to go and talk to kids, what's the first thing that you're looking for, which I guess would be indicative of what college position and head coaches are also looking for as well?
Honestly, looking for a guy who actually loves the game. You can kind of tell those who are in there just to be a part of the crew, and those who really love this is what they want to do, right? This is how they're going to feed their family. And they already have that mindset. You can see it in some of the kids, and this is all they have. So I want to be a football player, and I got to make it. Football has to be my ticket. Looking for those who are leaders. Like I said, I'll speak to Elijah Barnes today, him being a vocal leader, making sure everybody lined up, got their reps, didn't skip it. okay, that's the guy I want on my team because I know he's going to hold himself accountable and hold everybody else accountable. And then if you ever get a chance, get the kids on the board. Let's see how much they know. Like, how much film do they watch? Let's see if they really love it like they say they do. And so those are some of the things that, we would look for looking at film. And besides just watching film and seeing, of course, you're better than everybody on the field. And what do you know? How much time do you put into this? And so those things we take notes on and kind of separate those who, okay, this is a key player, this is a player for us, or this may not be a player for us, right? Because when you get to the college level, everybody thinks it's fun, but you're going to spend a ton of hours in that building, right? And it's going to be all about football, and so we need to find somebody who actually loves the sport, is going to actually put in that boring time watching film, learning more about their opponent, and trying to improve their game as well.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, essentially, without a doubt. And that's why, the conversation about the sport is what it is, but still at the same time, like, you have to have someone who has that hunger when it comes to football. And I'm glad that that's one of those things. Eric, is that basically kind of line up with what you've been going to high schools for the past 10 years? Sorry to put that date out there, but you've been going to high schools for a while. Is that kind of the same thing you look for? What are some things that maybe from a non-coach's perspective, but with so much coach input that you kind of think about when looking at high school recruits and getting to know them?
Well, absolutely. When Charlie that's what I liked about bringing Charlie on, was he already was investigating these guys in a very similar way to what we do. So when he went today to see Barnes, I said, hey, get the coach's perspective on his on the mental eval. How driven is he? Does he work hard? And obviously all those answers came back in the affirmative. But I'm always looking at the physical eval. Do they have the proper length? Are they short arms, long arms? But also work ethic is huge. Are they leaders? Do they carry themselves with confidence? Joseph Osai I knew was going to be a beast. That's why I ranked him so high coming out in 2018, because he was getting his whole team fired up for practice. And I asked him, I said, why do you talk so much trash? He says, because I need to bring the best out of them. I need them giving me their best look so I can get better. And, of course, Tyler Johnson didn't have that same exact sort of motivation on the other side. And then Tavondre Sweat was another one that always sticks out as far as, I got a much better idea for the physical evaluation when I saw him. I'm like, good Lord, this guy's going to be gigantic. There's no reason for him to be rated as a strong side defensive end, because he's never going to play it down there. So that in-person eval, you also don't know what you're going to pick up when you go there. You might learn something about the family that's really intriguing. The dad's a career military guy. Maybe that stands out. There's always going to be something brand new that you didn't even know you were looking for that might pop up.
Charlie, can't let you get out of here without fielding one question. I like this one from Adrian Arredondo. Charlie, do you look at anyone in the Frisco area? I went to Lone Star High School with Nick Bolton. Just wondering, Nick Bolton, Kansas City Chiefs, right? I don't know if he's still on there, but from that class of 2018.
Yeah.
Yes. I got you.
But
Charlie's wife's out of town, so he's doing dad duty.
Yeah.
Speaking of Frisco, we got Jalen Lott at Frisco, Panther Creek, so I'll definitely go by and see him. That's a priority, right? So I'll be in the Frisco area. I'll be in the process.
I'm at the party.
You know what? You got it.
With the party?
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, you on camera. Yeah, you on camera.
Oh man.
Okay, go.
Daddy daycare is a real thing.
Man, look, it's tough.
You never know what's going to happen on lives. And, we all got kids. So I got a 5-year-old on the couch. I'm just praying he doesn't want to break in and want to wrestle.
Yeah. So definitely, I'll be in the Frisco area. I definitely need to come by and see him. I'll be in Prosper. And so I'll probably hit that whole quarter when I get the chance to go there, hit Denton at the same time, since they're right down 380. So I'll be able to visit those schools up there.
Thinking about somebody mentioning Lone Star High School, how are you talking about Nick Bolton? Granted, maybe he's your classmate. How are you talking about Nick Bolton and not talking about Jalen Ford when you're talking about Frisco Lone Star guys, especially here on this? But, Charlie, thank you so much. You've got some great stuff already on Inside Texas from all your trips, especially the one from Skyline today. And you didn't just hit the superstars the main player like Elijah Barnes. You were able to talk about some other up-and-comers from a program that has produced a lot of talent. And like I said, you've already seen some of the other talented programs like South Oak Cliff, like Cedar Hill, who's got some great offensive linemen and all over the Metroplex. So we appreciate it. We're glad you're on board, and looking forward to having you on here and on the site a whole lot more.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm glad to be a part of the team, man. I can't wait to contribute more on the board. I was talking to Eric earlier. I got some cool things, some cool ideas, man. I want to bring things I learned at UNLV, but bring it to Inside Texas, man. I think it'd be really cool for the fans to be able to interact and learn more football. So I think it's awesome.
Hey, we love learning more football too. You got 3 other junkies on here with you, so thank you so much. Give the best to your daughters, and we'll have you on again here soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Mr.
Thank
Joe.
you to that. I'm excited about that. I more I get to talk to him, more I realize just the influence that he has and the network that he has. It makes me more and more excited.
Absolutely.
Did I hear that? I don't think I knew that Nick Bolton and Jalen Ford both came out of Frisco Lone Star.
Yeah, Bolton was class of 2018, and Ford was class of 2020. Yeah, because he flipped right before Texas played Utah, and then that was the whole trading a van for a Ford.
They're doing something different there at linebacker, because not a lot of high schoolers are producing even one P5 linebacker prospect, much less 2 NFL caliber guys.
And both went way under the radar too. Ford, Utah picked him up. Bolton went to Missouri, I believe, and just guys that, and you watch the tape, you're like, yeah, they're good. There was a guy today in Frisco, Agape Lawrence. He doesn't have any profiles. Ian, I'll send you his film. It's old school inside linebacker stuff where he's reading it well, taking on the right shoulder, and plays really revved up and downhill. We'll have to look at that because you're right. You don't find a whole lot of true inside linebackers. You find a lot of good athletes.
I think because most schools don't play their good athletes at inside linebacker.
Yeah, they're all on the edge.
So I wonder if Frisco sees things differently.
Right.
But we may just be giving more tips to like Utah or something though, because it's not like Texas.
They got some good facilities to work in up in the Star, but that's going to be the home of some prospects that we'll take note of. But I kind of wanted to talk about closing the book on the 2024 class and what is next in 2025. With Ryan Williams, the former Alabama commit, going to Saraland High School, same place as KJ Lacey, canceled his Texas visit, and then earlier tonight on Wednesday announced that he's going to stick with Alabama. The book is kind of closed on the 2024 class. We can talk about what's next in 2025, but I guess when Ian, with your Space Force positions in mind, what are the biggest needs, like the place where Texas just needs to get a bona fide dude in this class? You don't have to have a name in particular, but where is the spot where in this class, when kind of looking at previous classes, that you think pushing for a 5-star is probably the most important in this class at a certain position?
Yeah. They've really been loading up. So the main positions I like to look at for like where you want 5-star athletes that Joe's talking about are left tackle, wide receiver, especially deep threats, cornerbacks that can play on an island, and then edge rushers. And Texas loaded up at all 4 of those, right? They got Wingo, they got Baker at tackle, they got Colin Simmons on the edge, and then Kobe Black and
Wardell Mack, Santana Wilson. Zena on the other side of Colin, who fared really well in the All-American game. They loaded up on edge twice. I mean, it's a really good class in that regard.
Yeah, they I think offensive tackle would be one. Ideally all of them, but offensive tackle, I'd want to go back for more. I know there's some guys in the state that would do the job there. And then not amongst the 4 I just mentioned, but obviously defensive tackle. They could have a pretty good pitch. The depth chart will really thin out after the season, and anyone that could have a shot at playing early, they could make a good pitch for as a freshman coming in. So that's probably the one that would stand out the most, even though it's not one of those 4.
I think, you can add it by the, taking up Space Force. Because they've got to hit on, that's the number 1 position they've got to hit on in the class. Because, the guys they have are either ready to play now or require some development. Who's going to be the middle ground after Alfred Collins leaves? It's going to be, they're very hard to find in the portal. Maybe they'll get lucky either between now or in the spring portal window, but they need a guy like Nyblack at tight end that might bridge you 2 years, not just one. But defensive tackle is by far the most important position going into the class as far as I'm concerned.
That kind of leads into this question from Brett Nelson. Do you see Sark being more aggressive with the top-tier guys as opposed to playing the long game coming off the playoff run? I think the one thing that we took away maybe from the junior day is that there is a sense of urgency among recruits, whereas I think Texas is in a position that they haven't been in so long to where they can kind of call the shots. Texas used to have to kind of wait on guys' decisions. And yes, they encourage others to be patient, but they encourage them to be patient so they could sell more and build the relationship more. But now it seems like the urgency is on the side of the recruits, and Eric, Texas has a little bit more control, especially coming off a playoff run, a 4-team playoff run at that.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing them be more aggressive. They've got 5 commits. Maybe a couple of them might be tough to hold on to. Well, that's what happens when you take guys in the deep south early on in the cycle. But we're already seeing them be more aggressive, and I think that's going to continue. But it also helps that they're able to get the guys they want earlier because of the success they just had. Their demonstrated ability to develop the pieces they had that's going to show up immensely in the NFL draft. So. But fans have to remember that the guys they truly want aren't always going to align cleanly with the network rankings. So if you see them taking a guy early that you don't think is all that good, that doesn't mean that they don't think he's good. They think he's good if they're taking him for sure. But they also still play the long game because you never know. You always have to leave some room in case something unforeseen shows up. We've seen them capitalize on that time and time again. So you always have to leave some room just for the unforeseen. They've still got a little room right now for all these coaching changes that open up the portal for these schools that are just loaded with talent. We'll talk more about Michigan here in a bit. So they're always going to take their time when they need to, but they'll hit the gas when they need to as well.
And that kind of leads into another good question from AJ Bell, and I think you may have given an answer to it. How many wide receivers will Texas take in 2025? It's pretty early to make that call, I feel like. You look at the 2024 class, you had Ryan Wingo, you had Aaron Butler, who's going to play wide receiver. You had Parker Livingstone. You had Freddie DuBose. Then you would go ahead and add in Isaiah Bond, who has multiple years of eligibility left. But I think if he has his druthers, he's going to make this a one-and-done season. You also add Matthew Golden, and you add Silas Bolden. And those are guys who all those guys have multiple years of eligibility. To where I think, you kind of may think like the stock answer of like, yeah, you take 3 every cycle, but it's really impossible to know at this point, especially now after, Ryan Williams picking Alabama may help the process a little bit, but I think being able to put a number on it right now, it's so likely to change. It's almost not worth it.
I think it's going to be 3, and here's why. They're going to save room for DeCorian Moore no matter what. So maybe they end up with 4 because they already have 3 in December and he's ready to flip by then. But if he flips in the spring, then you're going to have a lot more clarity on your numbers. But they're in a very good position for Marcus Harris. We know they love him. He's a modern day player. He's already got his junior day scheduled. Justin Wells at Inside Texas reported that a week or 2 ago that his official visit is already scheduled for June 27th. So you can tell he's a priority. So there's 2 right there. Let's say they get both of those guys. They'll probably get another one. Will they turn down Kelshawn Johnson down there at Hitchcock? Or there's a number of speedsters that they're after. It just sets up pretty clearly that they're going to get at least 3. If they go 4, that'll be dependent on when does DeCorian Moore get in, if they can get him, and also who leaves early. Now their goal is to get both Golden and Bond out after very strong years. That's the goal of the staff. They want to get that assembly line going like they have it at running back right now. So the goal is to get Golden out and Bond out, and and obviously Bolden will be gone as well. So I think they're going to go 3. They're not going to go 1 or 2. That's for sure.
Eric, I'm going to knock this out of the way real quick. Do y'all think Texas can still land Jabbar Muhammad, or is that ship sailed?
I won't say it's sailed, because it's NIL is such a hard climate to read at times. You don't know. There's a lot of times that people are playing a game of chicken or posturing. Who blinks first. I think there's some factors there's some ways that Texas can still pitch Jabbar after his Oregon visit, but Oregon came into this as the leader. He's visiting them now. And so, in talking to people that know him well and know that situation, there's not a ton of confidence on the Texas side, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, a lot of people thought they weren't going to get Ryan Wingo at the last minute. And, I was having trouble ruling that one out just because I knew how much Texas wanted him. So we'll see it. When Texas really, really wants a guy, they tend to get him. And, they feel good about the corner situation at Texas better than the fans do. Because they know that those guys that they have are going to develop and improve from last year, but they do want Jabbar. It's I do think it's going to be Oregon as of now, but I wouldn't say the ship's entirely sailed.
Didn't you write earlier, Eric, that whenever a guy enters the portal and he has a leader at the gate, the recruitment might appear to go like this, but it usually settles back on that first team.
Yeah, that's usually a pretty big tell, and that's mainly derived from my experience of covering Texas in the portal. Normally, when there's a guy that's we saw it a few times. This cycle is pretty clear. I guess some could point to Caleb Downs. Everybody figured he was going to Georgia, but I don't think anybody knew definitively that Georgia was the leader going in. I think he had in his mind that he was going to his second favorite school when he made his decision to go to Alabama and Ohio State. So. Yeah, I think more often than not, they tend to end up at their first choice. And going into this, we knew Oregon was his first choice.
Got to make sure we ask people to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all y'all joining us tonight on another Wednesday night live stream. We'll get to the Jim Harbaugh thing in just a second, but we got a good question from Michael Latorre. Any team notes, any players y'all are hoping makes an early leap? So on Inside Texas, we kind of talked that they just went back to workouts yesterday. You saw some pictures. I think the social media team posted one of Michael Taft, Alfred Collins, and then Quinn Ewers leading drills, which, I think that's one answer, obvious answer to the question that you're looking at, Michael. But guys, what are some players y'all hope that maybe over the course of these workouts, an early leap, I guess, would be a guy from that 2023 or maybe even the 2024 class? Who are guys you want to hear some positive returns on, whether it be their first, heck, it could be their first spring at Texas, whether they're entering their second year or just showed up on the 40 acres. So Ian, any younger players that you kind of want to, you hope to hear about over the course of the coming weeks?
Well, anyone that plays defensive tackle, I mean, you kind of want to hear good things about them in offseason, regardless of age or year, because that's a classic position where it's all about these like big athletic people that may or may not have or develop the want to maximize at a demanding position. But Sydir Mitchell continuing to get into better shape would be big. Jere Bledsoe getting bigger would be important. Zach Swanson, actually the same thing. Like that guy, who knows when he might be a valuable contributor if he could just add enough weight to anchor. And then there's probably one other young guy in that room that maybe Aaron Bryant is a little older now, but he'd be a good time for him to make some kind of leap. I don't know if that would show up in the weight room at his age or if it would show up more in like a technical deal. But with a lot of those guys, I think it mostly just shows up in how they approach their business. If they have the desire and the work ethic to show up in the winter, that's probably going to indicate really good things for the practices that follow.
Yeah, I think the best way to go about this question is evaluate team needs. And obviously, Ian just hit a big one is defensive tackle. Sydir Mitchell has got a chance to really lay the groundwork to have a huge offseason with these next few weeks of lifting and conditioning. It's going to be extremely important for him because he's got all the talent in the world and all the opportunity in the world to play a lot next year, not just 10 snaps, but 20, 30 snaps. I see Jamon Tapp now named a couple times. I like Tapp too. I thought he showed some good attributes this year. If I was the staff, I would just stick him at strong side or at defensive end, 4-eye in that base package and let him stay there. Don't worry about him at edge or D tackle. Just put him in that one fit and let him get comfortable there. Maybe you put Bledsoe there at times too, but you've got two guys that you can play there because you're going to have to move Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton inside more often. You're going to spread them too thin if you play them side by side, I think. So I like Tap. I like the fact that his family's always traveling en masse to the games. The family's bought in. That's usually a good sign that the kid is bought in. Also, Jelani McDonald, that's another team need a safety. They're really shallow there as far as experience. Even Derek Williams, a stud. He's going to be a stud, but how soon is he going to be a stud? Jelani McDonald switching positions from star to safety, so some things are going to change for him. So you need those guys to step up, and Williams really needs to step up and be a solid starter, and McDonald needs to step up and be a solid contributor, somebody they can count on in case of injury.
Kind of to that point, Ian, what you were talking about with the defensive tackles, I think it's definitely worth hearing about when it comes to the edges. We kind of have a good sense of what Ethan Burke can provide, whether that be at Buck or maybe at Jack going forward. Same thing with Baron Sorrell. But who's going to be next? We've seen Justice Finkley play, and he's earned a lot of playing time, but we've seen him play in certain situations that are conducive to his strengths. And when he's outside of those situations, it doesn't always go well for Texas. Colin Simmons, I mean, we can't ignore the 5-star. It'd be great to know that he's not just working in a way that indicates that he has 5-star talent, but also 5-star work ethic for my all estimations. It seems like he's got that. Paxton, another good point. Trey Moore, just adding edges and those guys showing development to where, you may not have the rotation like you do at defensive tackle, but you have something at that position to where if Burke or if Moore or if Sorrell were to go down for any reason, any amount of time, then that makes sure that position is still in good shape. I want to thank Brett Nelson for the super chat saying, "Welcome, Charlie. We're glad to have him along. It's going to make things a lot where it's just only going to expand our recruiting coverage, and it should be great." Justin Yarbrough, I'd like to see Vosick step up and stay healthy. It's the second part. I don't think he actually put on pads for a game last season. I think he was, one of those freshmen who never dressed out. But Eric, is his long game still most likely at Jack, or do you think maybe the injury could keep him at Buck a little bit longer than expected?
Yeah, I think he's going to stay at Buck at least. I think he's on the Ethan Burke timeline, but I hear that he's actually more talented than Ethan Burke. So they need that guy healthy, because if he's as good, even if he's as close to Burke, much less, better than him, that guy can really help the team sooner than later. But yeah, he's got to get healthy and demonstrate he can stay healthy. I can't get too excited before then, but the things I hear about him, man, he's a player if they can get him right.
Let's take on the Harbaugh question. Any news on who's going to replace Jim Harbaugh? Ian, you've kind of been talking about there's been there's one expected move, one pretty easy move that probably doesn't, of course, replace Jim Harbaugh like for like, but that softens the blow of him leaving, if that's even possible, after the national championship season. And that guy is already in Ann Arbor and has experience serving as the head coach of the team.
Yeah. I don't know where exactly I got cut off earlier when I was talking about this, but they're just going to make Sherrone Moore the head coach. It's late enough in the process now so like when Nick Saban retired, there's a window before spring enrollment where Alabama just got gutted, right? Because players had enough time to like look around for a minute and still enroll and get going pretty easily at a new school. Jim Harbaugh's timing is not so good for the Michigan players. They're just going to promote Sherrone Moore. They're going to keep as much of that staff together as possible. And then they're going to end up keeping probably a lot of that roster together as well, too. Now, how capable are they going to be to defend their field against Texas next fall with all those losses? A little less clear. But I don't know if they're going to have like a really tumultuous portal deal or coaching search with this. I think it'll be a lot of internal promotions and, keep the train running. But
I think – go ahead.
Their defensive coordinator, you would think for sure, is going to follow Harbaugh to the NFL. And people think Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, and Jay Harbaugh, his son, I believe, that's on the staff, will both follow him. And then everybody else will more or less stay.
Yeah, Minter's always been the guy who, if this if this process happens, we know what's going to happen with Moore. We know what's going to happen with Harbaugh, but it's Minter because he is, you can put all the sign stealing things aside, and trust me, you can do that with this sport. You still have to tackle. You still have to block. It helps to maybe know what's coming, but you still have to do the physical things and be put in the right position. And Minter was one of the best at doing that. And Ian, he not only was, a great X's and O's guy taking over for I forget McIntyre, right? Who went with John Harbaugh to the Ravens.
Mike McDonald, who's the current Ravens defensive coordinator,
he
just
shut down
Texans.
So he took over for McDonald, and he kept so many of those. Realistically, they're NFL type systems that not only just help them bulldoze through the Big Ten, but also help them very, very much stifle an Ohio State offense that was limited by its own quarterback, but then stifle a Washington offense that had done what it did to Texas only a week prior.
Yeah, he's Minter. You figure Minter would be an eventual NFL defensive coordinator one way or the other, just based on what he's done in Michigan. But they're both gone now. Bodes well for Texas. And when do they play? Like September something, early September.
Week 2.
But I don't know. Like, for instance, they have a really good defensive tackles coach, but he's been in the Midwest at like Eastern Michigan or Notre Dame or Michigan for a long time. I don't know if they're going to be able to poach that guy. I don't know if they would even be on the radar. And they have a lot of good
Terry Joseph worked with Mike Elston. I think you pointed that out the other day, right? At Notre Dame. So maybe that would be one pretty loose tie.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be him. Here's my question for Michigan. What is the Jim Harbaugh discount that they've been getting in NIL? We knew that Alabama was getting a discount. What's going on in that regard?
I've heard things in the past that suggested that there were some discounts to play for Jim Harbaugh.
Right.
Michigan, the common refrain people will say is like Michigan and Ohio State is to Texas is to Oklahoma. And Ohio State is the Oklahoma where they're all in on football all the time and they will never let an advantage go by without trying to seize it to win in football. Michigan is like maybe more resourceful, but a little more bloated, a little less consistently motivated.
Mm-hmm.
That is true, but Michigan is much more bloated and less football focused than Texas is, especially like the administrative level.
So like losing Harbaugh is going to hurt then in that regard, because I don't think 37-year-old Sean Moore is going to have the oomph to make up for that, to be sort of the alpha that makes sure that the football is getting the resources they need.
Yeah, they do have a new president though, which has helped. They have a million NFL boost. A lot of their big boosters are like former NFL players too. They have definite ideas about how the program should go. So it's not like they're just going to die. It's still Michigan, but yeah, they could definitely go back into they're probably just as close to another Brady Hoke as they are to another Lloyd Carr or Jim Harbaugh. So
yeah, they're not immune from bad coaching hires, and you can win over 1,000 games, but if you bring in a Rich Rod who's not ready, or Brady Hoke who wasn't the guy to begin with, you can step back. And I like that bloat comment, because in the similarities that Michigan has with Texas, because they both value competitiveness across the board athletically. They're probably about to have to hire a new basketball coach as well, because the Juwan Howard experiment is failing. They probably, I don't know what their third sport would be. With Texas, you could argue baseball, you could argue volleyball. I guess with Michigan, it's probably hockey.
Yeah.
And so, I bet there's value in competing there. But I don't know if there's a centralizing figure. And Eric, I know you like to bring that up when it comes to coaching searches and guys who have control. Is Ward Manuel that? Does he have the rocks, I guess, up in Ann Arbor these days?
I mean, Ward is getting blamed for for essentially losing Bayline and Jim Harbaugh. So they're not. Harbaugh left them in pretty good shape because they have a good staff that they can promote from, like Sharon Moore. Maybe he'll end up being really good and won't be a problem. But they're not like, it's not like Texas with Eltif and Finvez and Del Conte and just consistent institutional commitment to making the most in football. I don't think.
Fenvis, what year are we in here, buddy? Fenvis hired Herman.
Fenvis is at Emory University. We got
Hartzell.
Jay Hartzell on board now.
Hartzell and Eltif and Del Conte.
Hartzell.
Oh,
I guess
man.
one
last question. Come on now, let's get to some questions. I love the questions.
We got to get one from our buddy Jeff Long going in the recruiting aspect. What position do you guys project Michael Terry to, and is Notre Dame a real threat? Jeff is not too far from Alamo Heights, if I remember right, so he's got a little bit of an interest in this one. Man, I don't know. He told Justin Wells that he was a little bit more interested in offense than he was playing defense. I think Justin also wrote on Inside Texas that he spoke mostly with Tashard Choice, and that's not to say that he's going to be a running back unless he's, like little Jordan Humphrey was back at South Lake Carroll. But, I mean, it seems like it's either receiver or maybe tall corner. I don't know. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know either. If he doesn't want to play defense, it's really hard to get somebody that doesn't want to play defense, because it takes a lot of heart and effort and mindset and disposition to play defense. So I think that's part of what has taken so long on the offer. He's one of the top players in the nation. Maybe I think he's the best rated athlete in the country. But what does it mean to be an athlete? That's not a real football position. He has to actually play somewhere. So is he a highly rated player at one side of the ball? That's what you loved about Jatavian Sanders, is you could see that there was a clear potential at two positions. With him, it's just going to have to be probably figured out on campus. If he wants to play running back, there's going to be schools that allow him to play running back if that's what he really wants to do. If he wants to play wide receiver, there's going to be schools that want to do that. We'll let him do that. It's just, I think that one's going to be hard for me to see him end up at Texas unless there's more positional clarity.
And then we got another good one from Paxton. Do y'all think Barron even starts? Jade, that is. I know it sounds crazy. Yes, but is it for sure at nickel? I think that's the real question.
He's definitely going to start, and it's probably going to. I'm almost sure it's going to be at nickel. Who's going to replace him? They didn't get anybody. Who do they get that's going to replace him at nickel? I mean, if you got Makuba, you would want to have him helping out at safety. Maybe potentially there's a safety that steps up. They could put Makuba at nickel, and then Jade could play corner. I think everybody's conflating Jade's last couple games when he was, pretty significantly banged up with multiple injuries. Nobody was wanting to replace Jade Barron in the middle of the season. So I think he was just a little banged up. Part of that problem is he plays a physical position. Nickel, you're going to get banged up. So that's part of the problem. The problem is I think they need more depth there. But yeah, Jade's going to. They'll probably let him try corner out. I think that's partly to highlight his ability for the NFL. But when that Texas is playing OU, where do they need Jade Barron? It's probably going to be at nickel.
From the 2020,
he might be the best player at all five positions in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
We'll start at one of them. I guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I guess one quick question on that. From the 2024 class, so thinking Kobe Black, thinking Santana Wilson, thinking Wardell Mack, who's if one of them decides, hey, I'm good with corner, who do you think, or excuse me, I'm good with star, who would it be best for Texas to make that decision? I think, Eric, you've even kind of mentioned that it might not be a bad spot for Wardell Mack.
Wardell could do it for sure, and Kobe could do it. First, you want to see who's the best corner, and then you just make up your mind you're not going to move him. And I think Santana Wilson probably has the most natural cover corner traits in that class. Wardell has it too. It might just come down to who has the best long speed that stays at the other corner. Both Wardell and Kobe have very good length for playing in the boundary. But I think Kobe Black is probably destined to move somewhere. I don't know that for sure because, we just saw Ryan Watts play pretty solid ball at Texas for at corner at, even bigger than Kobe. I think Kobe moves better than Watts. So I'm not trying to move anybody that doesn't want to be moved. The whole thing is, somebody's going to want to play and not come off the field, and they're going to make that move happily if it means they get more playing time. But I think Kobe would probably be the best suited for that. And I think Wardell would probably be a good boundary, and Santana to me is your field corner.
Love that. Got a good question from our buddy David Williams. I've read some views which I actually agree with regarding Colin Simmons. I'm not sure if he's suited to play weak side defensive end at 6'2.5". At that height, I'm not sure if he can get up to 250 to be big and strong enough to support the run in the SEC. I wonder if outside linebacker is a better, more appropriate position for Simmons. Ian, I know there's some kind of conflation on positions and hybridizing that buck position, but I correct me if I'm wrong. He's kind of going to be doing a lot of different things. I get the run stopping question, but he's going to be doing a little bit of outside linebacker and then a little bit of defensive end just naturally because of the spot he was recruited in by Pete Kwiatkowski.
So he's basically the same size as people such as Von Miller and Micah Parsons, who do pretty well playing the edge in the NFL. I don't think Simmons is going to have any problems in the SEC at that size. I mean, Will Anderson is a freak and one of the best all-around football players I've seen in a few years. Will Anderson played like as a 4-eye at Alabama at like 245. There's a lot more that goes into it than just pure weight. And Simmons is a powerful freak. He can do whatever they need him to do. I'm not even a little bit worried about that, honestly.
I'm not worried about it either, and height doesn't equate to length. I don't know what his arm length is, and there's always if they lack something, do they have compensatory traits? And the way Simmons moves compensates for pretty much anything, and he plays very aggressively, which like Will Anderson will overcome some of your size limitations. So I have zero. I think Colin Simmons was almost built in the lab to play buck for Texas. You don't want to be too tall because ideally you're able to drop into coverage too. So you need you to change a direction and remain the same, and usually the taller you get, the harder it is to change direction. I think he's perfectly suited for buck. And I think he just drops to like 27th in the country by one network. I think that's crazy. I think he's going to be a superstar at Texas.
And this isn't to say that he's a finesse player, but his quickness, like you mentioned, Ian, can overcome a lot of these, if this is even a pitfall, he's got quickness at whatever size he's going to be that it's going to be difficult for offensive tackles to manage. And that's not only going to be seen just kind of trying to dip the shoulder and come around the edge. He'll be just, putting moves on a guy, even if that guy's coming downhill on him. Like he'll be able to use some of his traits and abilities that are going to be able to compensate. And I think compensate has a negative connotation there, but it'll be able to manage, make up for whatever you want to call it for maybe a lack of size.
Well, he's got running back feet and balance, so that's going to help him. Left tackles are going to be worked over as in the pass protection. He just moves too well.
Got two more kind of big picture ones I think that are good before we get out here. Too early or eager to predict the 2024 record. Man, this is tough, but hey, I bet a lot of predictions may have just changed tonight. With Jim Harbaugh leaving and the status around the Wolverines head coaching job. Of course, that roster is leaving. You can kind of look at the other games on the schedule. Let's see. You got Colorado State, and they lost some of their better players to the portal. Michigan, ULM, and then is it UTSA or UTEP? It's one of those two, I believe. So you're non-conference. You're either 4-0 or 3-1, barring a disaster. Then you got 8 conference games. Your road games are Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M. You're probably going to beat Vanderbilt. Arkansas, I think you're going to be in good shape with them. OU, no matter what happens, you can never predict that game. And as weird as this is to say, that A&M game is going to be just a difficult place to play. So you're starting out 3-1 or 4-0 from your non-conference, and then let's say they go 4-0, so 8-0 through just this isn't even the schedule. This is just kind of going home and road. So you can go 8-0. That leaves home games versus Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Right? State. Yeah. State's not going to be much of an issue. Florida's not going to be much of an issue. Like, it's crazy that I'm just kind of sitting here going through it and thinking, 10 wins is very, very attainable, if not
I was wondering if you're ever going to get to 10-2. I mean, holy cow! It was almost time for kickoff before you got there. 10-2. I mean, they're going to go into the season. They should be ranked number 2 in the preseason. I would have had them number 3 until Ohio State hired Bill O'Brien. But now Ohio State's 3rd. So yeah, Georgia's going to be number 1. I think Texas should be number 2, and then they're going to play each other. I think October 18th. There's a decent chance both teams will be undefeated. You don't know. Texas could drop to OU again when they shouldn't. But I mean, yeah, it's 10-2 is a safe play, making the playoffs, and going from there, having a shot to win it all. They've got a shot to win it all next year.
Ian, what do you think? We all were almost all across the board 10-2, and Eric, you were 11-1 right before the buzzer, I think, on this past season.
I went 11-1 when I realized that Alabama was going to start Jalen Milroe, because then I said Texas is going to win that game. And then they're going to drop a game in the Big 12 that they shouldn't. And it was Oklahoma, which, I didn't think they were going to lose to Oklahoma. I thought it would be, K-State or something stupid like that. But yeah, I got 11-1 at the buzzer. And that's why whatever we predict now, I'm not going to be held to this prediction on January 24th. I'll have a prediction late August.
This is set in stone. We're remembering this one. Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, listening to you go through it, I think 10 makes sense. I kind of want to lean 9 for now, just because I'm usually on the more optimistic side. I do think there will be an adjustment entering the SEC. Some of those road games that look easier are going to be a little tougher than fans think. But I mean, I think as things stand right now, the goal should be to try to make the playoffs, right?
That's a good point, though. That we saw there was a stretch this season where Texas got pretty banged up. That could happen in the SEC. It's more likely to happen in the SEC, and it's likely to be more prolonged than we saw this year. Texas was able to get healthy there towards the last 2 or 3 games, but yeah, that war of attrition could take a toll for sure.
At the same time, there are 2 bye weeks this year, so you can balance that. And hey, this is as good of a year to have 2 bye weeks, and I think that talking about the playoff is a good thing to get in on this one. Sorry to take this long to get to this one, Syracuse Horn, but I think it's a good one. Do y'all think conference championship games will soon be a thing of the past? They seem irrelevant with the playoffs now. No, because TV networks like having games to televise and the opportunity to put 1 versus 2 in the SEC, or 1 versus 2 in the Big 10, or 1 versus 2 in the Big 12, or any power conference is not going to go away just because of a 12-team playoff. Yeah. Are they irrelevant? That's a different question, I feel like, though.
Well, so you're right. They're going to want to keep them for the TV money. So then the thing will be, do we just get rid of these, or will it be, how do we make sure these have good, high enough stakes to justify them? Because obviously it's going to matter when a smaller conference's bid in the playoffs hinges on winning the conference championship. So those will stay important. The Big 10 and the SEC championships will seem to be a lot less important because each conference will get multiple teams in. So what you do if that becomes a problem is you just guarantee that winning one of those games gets you like a first round bye or something.
Yeah, and it does that for the top 4.
It does.
And now
so
there's only
already pretty important.
Right. And I think that's part of it. The college football idealist in me says, no, they're not irrelevant. Like, this is how you measure up to your rivals. Like, one of the big things about Jim Harbaugh in the last 3 years is that he beat Ohio State and won the Big 10, which is something that Ohio State had a stranglehold on. Texas celebrated winning the Big 12 so much this year, not only because it was the last one, not only because they hadn't done it in a while, but because that is the measure of how you compare to your peers. I mean, even Nick Saban, I don't know, I didn't follow Alabama close enough to know exactly how he treated it, but the opportunity for a competitor like him to be able to say, hey, we beat Georgia, we won a trophy, we're lifting something up, I think it's still relevant. Ian, you have a really good point about the stakes. The pride won't be what drives people. It's going to be the opportunity to rest a week. Because if 11-1 Texas and 11-1 Ole Miss are meeting in Atlanta for the SEC title game, you know what? There's going to be a lot of pride. But Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, what they're going to want is that extra bye week, that extra week off, that ability to watch the opponents and get the team healthy. So they're not going to become a thing of the past, but their importance, their precedence is going to be a lot different, I feel like. Guys, going on about 55 minutes here. Anything else y'all want to touch on before we get out of here?
Well, let's get this. I'm not sure what Dennis Donaldson is asking in the first question. Is IDL rotation keeping quality players out of the portal? How do you combat? I don't think that anybody's looking at Texas's inside defensive line rotation and saying that's going to keep me from playing. It's pretty inviting. You just lost 2 guys going to the NFL. There's a chance they both go in the first round. It's about as inviting as it could possibly be. And of course, you're going to, even if you're not going to start or play, 50 snaps, you're going to rotate a lot, just like Tia Savea, who came in from Arizona. He's going to play. They've got room for another guy to play. They're just going to wait and see what, could come their way. They know they've got another portal window to address the need. If so, the spring window is not nearly as busy as the winter one. However, you could tell by how busy this winter was that spring is probably going to follow suit and be busy as well. There's going to be a lot of new coaches that are going to, maybe not meld with some players. Some players are going to just look for greener pastures. Maybe that discount that Michigan players are getting is no longer something they want to do. The second question goes, Bond leaving impacted Williams' decision. Which player would you rather have? I'd rather have Isaiah Bond because you're trying to win a national championship in 2024, and he's most likely to help you. He's seen as a like for Worthy. I think he's actually going to be more productive than Worthy next year. I like his ball skills better. He's not quite as dynamic as a route runner. He's not quite as dynamic vertically, but he's still plenty fast. But he's got a lot better softer skills as a wide receiver. So, wide receivers, you don't want to say a guy like Ryan Williams is replaceable, but there's ways to make up for that every cycle. They're going to be able, if they have to go to the portal again next year, it's not going to be as urgent as this year, but if they have to again, they'll go get the next Isaiah Bond. They just got, Adonai Mitchell, who's going to go in the second round, first round. So you're trying to win every year. And they've got this window with quarterbacks to win a national championship. Just keep bringing in guys that keep that window wide open.
And Isaiah Bond in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Absolutely. I mean, Ryan Williams is 16 years old. What happens if he can't get off press or, we don't know how he's going to adapt to college ball. Isaiah Bond is a known. You take Bond all day long. That's where people can't look at the star. I mean, Isaiah Bond was a highly rated player anyways. It's not, you don't want to stargaze on Ryan Williams when you got a chance to that guy could be, Williams or Bond could be one of your 2 or 3 best offensive players next year.
Yep.
And the defensive tackle rotation, that's not keeping players out of the portal. That's putting players in the NFL. Like Moro Ojomo, Keandre Coburn, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat. Yeah, you like them on the field, but when you're 300 pounds, that engine, it runs a little bit differently than a guy who's like 240 pounds. Being able to rotate probably helped them put their best plays on the field when they were on the field and probably put them into the NFL. So I don't think that's a detriment. I think that's something that is a positive. And go ahead.
That could change because Georgia has been notorious for they have a ton of amazing defensive linemen and they rotate like Texas does. And then the Philadelphia Eagles basically drafted the Bulldog defensive line to power their defense. And then they had all kinds of problems this year because they had all these dudes that were asked to play serious snaps over a 16-game season after playing like 30, 40 snaps a game 12 times at Georgia, and it has not gone very well for the Eagles. So that might be something that changes a little bit in the future, but maybe not. Of just wanting to see guys demonstrate some stamina before you give them, a first-round grade and contract, but maybe not.
We got some jokesters in here. Please try to pronounce Savea's full first name. I'll take
that's what I was going to end on. Tia Ali'i Savea.
Nope, that's not what I heard. Tiawali Savea.
Yeah, see, I was thinking it was Tiawali. Just kind of looking at it, that would have been my guess. But this is where we really miss Justin, man. Justin would really light this one up. That's a word you wish was a Scrabble word acceptable, because that's what I'd normally end up with, all the ones, all the vowels that are worth 1 point. That's a difficult one. And then we got another one asking or saying, Coach Boyd, how did the DL look today during workout? So that's somebody that's making light of Ian Boyd being our next defensive tackles coach, which thankfully, mercifully, that's not going to be the case. Imagine Ian Boyd recruiting in Atlanta, Georgia. I can't do it.
Imagine Ian Boyd trying to get the best out of like some 20-year-old that's like 3 times my size.
You'd be like the guy that gets pissed off at Bane. He's just yelling at Bane. And do you feel in charge?
Yeah. The Wall Street guy.
Yeah, the Wall Street guy. All right, guys, that's probably good.
All right, right at an hour. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. Make sure you head to Inside Texas. You can go to Inside Texas and get 1 month of access for $1. Gets you pretty much all the way through this spring recruiting season and right up to spring workouts. And once you're there, you're going to want to stick around with it. Ian, thank you so much. Eric, thank you so much. My name is Joe Cook. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.